Hello, my name is Justin Brown and I am the founder and lead investigator of Interface Death, and in this episode of Quick Tips, we'll be discussing some psychological aspects of the paranormal and things to keep in mind when you're doing your research and investigation. And one of the very first things I would like to talk about is a term in psychology called psychosomatic. And the reason I want to talk about this in particular is a lot of times paranormal researchers or investigators go off psychosomatic things that occur. It could be goosebumps, it could be feelings that they get, it could be investigating people at a residence or people in an area where there's paranormal phenomena allegedly occurring. They could be experiencing things that may be psychosomatic. And what psychosomatic means is things that derive from the mind, and it can affect the body, or it can affect your experience or your overall, perception of the world or a particular event. So if you are going off feelings, goosebumps, vibes, personally, as an investigator, this can be very problematic, and the reason for this is there's a lot of things that can give you a false positive, and the reason why I urge a lot of people to start eliminating these psychosomatic things from their investigation and research is there's no way to prove at all that goosebumps are caused by spirit energy or a spirit presence. There's no way to prove that, a vibe that you get or energy that you feel, cold spots, etc., without the, tie-in with other devices that measure temperature and so on. That's the only way to prove of what you're feeling is what actually is. And if you're experiencing clients telling you stuff that you can find no evidence to support, it could be something coming straight from their mind or generated by their mind, either through hysteria, delusion, mental illness, or anything, a host of things. So when you're investigating, you definitely want to try to remove those types of things from your research and your investigation to help solve problems, solve mysteries, and help your client in general. Now, there's a lot of times that your client is already, dedicated and 100% sold on the idea that their house may be haunted or what they experience is paranormal. So keep that in mind. Be upfront with the people or the business owner, whoever it may be, that this could all be perceived from the mind and not actually happening. So I just wanted to touch base on that just for a second in the beginning of this video to help you guys be aware that it's definitely not a good idea to base your research off psychosomatic things. So as you push forward, you definitely, if you want to research psychic phenomena and things that involve goosebumps, feelings, vibes, that in itself should be backed up by something really, really powerful and strong, and should have no weight on its own as far as evidence. But something else, along the lines of psychology, is called confirmation bias. Now, when you're confronted with new evidence, and you use it to support beliefs that you already have, that is pretty much defines confirmation bias. If you go into a location or a residence or a business and you're already sold on the idea of it's being haunted, then you're already set up for failure. It's very important to be objective when you go out there and do your research. People who are serious about it will know off the rip if you are being subjected to or under the influence of confirmation bias. There's a lot of ghost hunters and enthusiasts out there that go to notoriously haunted locations already believing that the place is haunted. My advice would be to go into each place not thinking or believing if the place is haunted or not. You just want to go and try to document something very solid that supports either a haunting or not a haunting, not existing. So if you find yourself going into places that you covet, that you've been wanting to go for a long time just because you've seen it on TV or you've read articles or books about it, you want to be very careful in already believing that the place is haunted, because it can definitely cause you to use, a hit on an EMF meter or something, you can't explain immediately on, a possibility of it being haunted. You want to exhaust all methods of trying to debunk and explain things before you even go down that route. And as long as you try to go about your research and investigation in that way, you'll find yourself becoming more of a credible and more of a, productive paranormal researcher, because the phenomena is rare and you want to show and convey to people that is peer reviewing your work that you're trying your best to get to answers instead of just confirming your own biased beliefs every time you go out and do research. And another thing I want to talk about is cognitive dissonance. It's another psychological term that is pretty much defined simply as stating stress that is caused by people and others, that even yourself, that have beliefs that they conflict with each other. And when you're presented with evidence or information that conflicts with something that you already believe in, and that you believe in quite a lot, you may be suffering from cognitive dissonance in your research. Now, if you take a good look at yourself and you're a believer in orbs, for example, and if you're presented with evidence that debunks orbs and photographs and video as being dust or airborne particles illuminated by bright light sources, then if you have a strong belief that those are spirits, you're going to have stress. And depending on what type of person you are, you may just turn your head away from evidence that will help you to grow and become a better paranormal researcher. And that goes it goes along with about everything that you hold on to strongly. And my point about bringing this up is you never want to have any type of personal tie to anything that you believe to be paranormal. You always want to leave it in a state that is very, vulnerable to being debunked or being explained. You never want to hold personal belief to anything when you're researching and trying to get to the bottom of the truth. And that is a very scientific way of doing things. When you start, tying your own personal emotions in with things that you believe that are paranormal, you're going to suffer from a lot of cognitive dissonance, because if you're doing things correctly when you're researching and investigating, you're going to find all the time that you were wrong. And whether it be something you uncover or solve on your own, or something someone comes to you and tells you, you're going to have to deal with cognitive dissonance. Now, the reason why I want to bring this up in a quick tips video is everybody to some degree is guilty of bringing in these psychological aspects to their paranormal research, just because it's the very nature that I can see. It's the nature of people who believe in the paranormal, that's had paranormal experiences, and that have some type of personal tie to why they're doing it in the first place. You always want to have some element of doubt in everything that you're researching. You always want to question everything. So the more scientific, the more objective that you become, the better you can be as a paranormal researcher from a scientific standpoint. Now, if you're not interested in doing that at all, you're not doing science at all. So you're actually doing an injustice to scientific research of the paranormal. Now, if you claim to have psychic powers or abilities, have a scientific paranormal researcher test those abilities. There has been nobody in the history of paranormal research who can legitimately say that their abilities have been tested and that everything that they claim is in fact true. All psychics have a very low percentage rate of being correct on anything, and they are always vague. They're never able to offer up any accurate information to prove psychic abilities. Now, that's why the scientific field, does not even look at such things as legitimate. No one has been able to produce it. Now, the government's researched it in the US, in Russia, and many other places, and there has just been nothing published that is convincing to anybody. Now, I'm not trying to offend people, but that's just the truth of it. I mean, people who's worked with psychics and mediums, they'll tell you that their success rate and their accuracy rate is below 10%. Now, 10% would be high from anything I would see, but somewhere in between 1% and 7 or 8% is pretty much the accuracy of people who claim to have psychic abilities. So all these things I want you to try to keep in mind and apply to your paranormal research. Go out and research these topics yourself. Research psychosomatic effects, research confirmation bias and what cognitive dissonance is, and try to apply that knowledge to your paranormal research next time you go out, because each and every day we try to become better. We try to understand ourselves along with trying to understand the things that aren't explainable by science. And as we go out there, we want to show people that what we once believed in, what we once thought was true, is probably not. Science, through the progression of its development, has seen that what they once believed is no longer truth and no longer, something that they adhere to. It's constantly growing, it's constantly changing, and we become smarter through science and the application of the scientific method. And that's what the paranormal research field needs. It needs to grow, it needs to change, it needs to learn, it needs to fess up, it needs to just pull up their big boy pants and say, hey, yep, that I was wrong, we need to move forward. This method is not right, we found evidence that it's not right. We don't need to trash that and just, hold on to our beliefs just because we suffer from cognitive dissonance and confirmation bias. We need to look at ourselves mainly as the subject of failure, of the subject of, being faulty. So once the best tool is ourselves, is the way we perceive what we're researching. And once we start getting over those humps as paranormal researchers, one by one, we'll slowly start getting down to what is true and what is just pseudoscience and basic belief. So with that being said, I hope you have a good day today. Please visit our website at www.interfacedeath.net. Check out all of our social links, subscribe to our mailing list, subscribe to our YouTube channel, give us feedback, help us become better paranormal researchers. And until next time, I bid you farewell.